Hey everybody, it's Josh Rutledge, your co-host for FearScape Paranormal Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support us more, please head over to our website, FearScapePodcast.com. There you can click on store and browse some really awesome t-shirts and maybe pick a couple up, or even go to our Patreon page and see how you can support us monthly. We love bringing you awesome content just as much as you like listening to it. Enjoy the show.
The following program is presented for entertainment purposes. WCHQ does not necessarily endorse the ideas presented.
FearScape is a program that explores the legends and lore around many creepy and scary things. Information is researched and presented in an entertainment fashion and is presented based off of what we found. Legends have a way of changing over time, so beware.
FearScape.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another spooky episode of FearScape here on 100.9 FM WCHQ, as well as the Destination Nation Network. My name is Stefan Gerhardt, and I am joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Mr. Josh Rutledge.
Well, thank you, Stefan. I'm not sure I would use beautiful to describe me.
I would. They can't see you in radio land. You are, sir, a dashing... Dapper. I'm going to use dapper.
That's a good one.
Dapper gentleman.
Yep.
We have an incredible episode today. We are interviewing. We're doing another Gettin Spooky episode, but this time we are doing it with a new friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Stanek. So say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody.
And he hit me up. I hit him up about a listener story, and then from there it just spiraled. And come to find out, he's got as many stories as we do. So I said, why don't we have you come on the show? Let's talk about all your stories. And I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. And I'm glad you're here, Josh. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
But yeah, before we get into your interview, Mr. Stephen, I'm not Stefan. Before we get into that, let's get into a little bit of spooky news. All right, so Josh, you said you got a little something for spooky news for us today.
Yep.
What you got?
So I got this this guy in India who for the
you have a guy?
Well, I don't have a guy.
Oh,
the news story is of a gentleman in India.
Okay.
Who for the last 3 years has been attacked by a murder of crows. So, in case you don't know, a murder of crows is just a group of crows.
A group of crows, yeah.
Right. You know, it's not anything spectacular, but...
No, it's pretty spectacular.
Well, yeah, but
there's a reason.
So, it's basically like, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, every time the dude goes outside. They, in his words, dive bomb him like a group of fighters going in for the kill.
Oh, wow.
So, he says it's all a misunderstanding, that basically 3 years ago... He went outside, and there was a chick of a crow laying on the sidewalk, and he picked it up, and it died in his hands. And so now the crows think that they killed one of theirs, and so they're going to get him back.
Oh, my God. I mean, it takes a village.
Yeah.
I actually have a little tidbit I can kind of segue into there with that. I actually watched a documentary not too long ago. They were talking about the behavior of crows. And when a crow dies, I think they called it a crow funeral. A lot of the crows in the area will come, and what they're doing is they're observing and trying to figure out why one of theirs died, and they kind of like an investigator. And they,
nice.
Yeah, and they kind of, I guess, as a way of like, hey, this killed my buddy, so stay away from that.
So like CSI, so they get to the end, they realize it's the guy that killed that baby. One of the crows puts sunglasses on.
They get into a Chevelle and drive away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, man. So for 3 years, he's had to deal with this?
With them just every time he goes outside.
God, can you imagine the stories that are being passed down? Because, I mean, I don't know how long crows live. I know they do live quite a while, but, like, that, I wonder if
every new generation.
Hey,
you got to find this guy, and you got to attack him. It's like, Frank, you're on first shift. Ralph, you're on second.
Yep. Man, that's crazy. Where did we get that news from?
That was from Oddity.
Oddity, nice. So yeah, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right, well, let's get out of here. That was spooky news. Yeah, I don't want to get murdered by a murder of crows. I mean, I think if they get their flanks big enough, he's done for.
I mean, a crow's a pretty big bird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You get, I don't know how many make up a murder, but it's got to be quite a bit.
Where two or more are gathered, crow is there. But yeah, so we're gonna move right into creepy catch-up. I don't have anything this week. It's been a pretty uneventful week for me, which I'm happy about. But yeah, I know you got something, and if you've got anything that's happened recently, you're welcome to share. But yeah, let's go on and get into some creepy catch-up.
Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, Joshy Poo, what you got?
Yep. So I'm at work the other day, and I go into the stall to use the restroom.
First mistake.
Yeah. Well, there's my bathroom only has stalls, actually. Even the urinal.
Even the urinal?
Yep. In stalls.
Wait,
weird.
You work at home, don't you? No.
And yeah, every man needs to have a urinal at home.
Dude, I would love to have a urinal at home, man.
So yeah, so I go in the stall and I hear someone clear their throat and grunt in the stall next to me. It's no big deal. It's a bathroom,
it's a
right?
bathroom,
right?
Yeah.
So, but I get done and I go out to wash my hands, and there's no one in the stall next to me.
Oh wow!
Wow.
You don't think was the door open?
No, I mean the door's closed, and no one came in or left while I was.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, do you think they picked their feet up? 'Cause that's kind of super creepy.
I mean, the door to the stall was open. I mean, there was no one in.
Well, that's what I was asking. Like, was it locked or it open?
No, I mean it's not like they went in there, locked it, and crawled underneath. I mean, I would have seen that, right? So.
Now, did you get the willies? Because I would have got the willies.
No, not really.
You were like, man, it's work bathroom, dude.
I mean, I it's bad enough that guys go in there and use the restroom and don't wash their hands. So maybe it's the ghost of stuff in the
It's
past.
just ghost of grime, and not Rick Grimes either. Yeah, no, like I said, I didn't have anything happen this week. It's been a pretty solid week, though. I've already been talking to Brad a little bit, who, he's been like, of course, as soon as I step down, everything has been happening to me. So I think that when we have him on in a couple months to kind of check up on him, I think he'll have some pretty good stories. So
awesome.
It should be pretty fun. But yeah, that was Creepy Catch-Up.
Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, so yeah, that was some Creepy Catch-Up.
Mysterious mustard.
Myopic mayonnaise. But no, that's Creepy Catch-Up. I always hate when I say this, but I was about to say, boy, I hope I got something next week. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, but thank you, Josh, for sharing that with us. And so let's get back to talking. We've got our guest here, Stephen Stanek. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and agreeing to come on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And all that stuff. And so we're just going to hit you up with some questions. I know you got a lot of stuff to talk about, but, the first question we tend to usually ask is like, what was your first experience? For both of us, it was kind of when we were both younger, things like that. Like, what was your first experience with the paranormal?
My first experience was actually in the house I grew up in, my dad's house. Apparently, I don't know if the man who lived there, but there was an elderly couple that lived there before my parents moved in, and the woman had passed away inside there. And, when I was about probably 4, 5 years old, kind of when you really start kind of remembering stuff, I remember my dad usually, talking about the ghost woman or, talking about that.
So then you had parents open to this.
Yes.
That's cool.
And, being a kid, I didn't see it until maybe I was like 6 or so. But it just, I guess I've always kind of had that affinity, you know, like I can sense it. And I always felt like if I was alone, which I kind of was sometimes, like even just in my own room, it just felt weird, eerie, like something was watching me. But the first time I seen it, though, my parents, they went out of town on a camping trip, and my uncle stayed the night to watch me and my sister. Well, me and my uncle ended up sleeping on the couch where my dad normally did, and that's just because whatever, that's where he chose to. But we both happened to wake up at the same time and witness the same thing that my dad would always tell us. And this ghostly apparition of a lady, like a white
classic white lady,
yeah, and with a little like white gown, she came out of the doorway, which was where like my room was. She would come out, and she would turn the lamp out in the living room. And so, mind you, I was born in '86, so this is in the '90s, and some of the older kind of stuff we still had.
Right.
The lamp that we had hung from the ceiling, but it was fashioned like a gas lantern, but it had the turn on the bottom.
Twist.
Yeah, the twist. Yeah, the twist turn on the bottom. When you clicked it, it'd come on. Click it, it'd go off. Yeah. The lamp would turn off. The TV we had, when you pushed the button to turn it on, it stayed in. When you pushed it again, it'd come out to turn off. Yeah. But she'd turn the lamp off, the TV off, and then she'd go into what was the dining room, kitchen area, take her hand, ruffle the curtains, and just disappear.
Man.
Oh yeah. And wow. I mean, I know you had mentioned kind of chronologically. I'm just
you feel free to skip around.
No,
too,
yeah. I'm just gonna say, while I'm on this topic, eventually my dad, he did some. He does concrete for a living, construction. So he started doing some remodeling on the house. And it really just kind of was, he took the window out of the dining room and boarded it up because he was going to add on to it.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And then when he did that, so now you're messing with, I guess, the routine.
Right.
So the window's no longer there. He took that lantern out of the living room and put a ceiling fan in, and then put that lantern in above the dining room table. And, of course, as time goes on, you get new TVs. But it was weird because I guess where it interrupted her, disrupted her routine, it changed. And she became the lady in the lamp. She kind of lived in the lamp in a way. Like, we didn't see her anymore, but the lamp. And, I've heard people say, well, the electrical wasn't done right. And it's like, okay, fair is fair. But, I mean,
sure.
When you turn the lamp on and the switch on the wall and it doesn't come on, or vice versa, when it's off and you turn it off there at the lamp and it doesn't turn off, and you try to do the switch over there on the wall and it still doesn't turn off, and it really had almost like a mind of its own. It would come on when it wanted to, it would turn off when it wanted to, and sometimes it wouldn't turn off or on when you tried to do the
So what's interesting is, like, my grandparents' house, it was had spirits, let's say, and but I noticed that after change like that, there would be a period of activity, and then things would kind of, for lack of a better term, die down.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I just curious, how long after all of that was moved around, did it continue to be active like that, or was it, was there like a period of high activity and then it kind of went away?
Kind of. It's a little hard to, because as that time, kind of progressed, life happens. My parents got separated, divorced. I didn't live at that house anymore. I mean, I'd go visit and all that. Yeah. So when you live somewhere, you have a lot more better.
Sure.
But I will say, though, even to this day, both houses. I mean, I'll get into my mom's house, a little bit later, but even to this day, going to my dad's house, it's like.
So he's still got the same house?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, I don't know what it is, but when I was in high school, this stuff happened when I was fairly young.
Yeah.
Right.
Even when I was in high school, he would go down to Mexico for vacation, and he'd have me come and feed the dogs, take care of the dogs, cats, all that. And I went there one night, and growing up, he collected turtles, and then the turtle passed away, so then he started collecting clocks. And there was like 30 clocks all ticking at the same time.
So he's like, I'm tired of these things dying. Let's get something that can just be wound back up.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if that added to it or not, but I remember walking in and just getting this feeling that kind of was uneasy, and all I hear is 30 clocks tick.
Oh.
So, and I run in and grab the dog food and go put it in their bowl and the cat and everything real quick, and I'm getting ready to leave, and it just feels even worse. And I'm just like, I'm out. I told my dad, I said, I will do it, but only during the day.
Yeah, there's something about clocks because it's rhythmic, and so it almost gives a hypnotic feel that you don't want someone to be able to tap into. It's interesting you talked about that light, because I know last episode with Josh we talked about the old house, your grandmother's house, with the light coming on and off as well. Very interesting. I mean, lights are classic. Lights are very, and in fact,
EM fields and that sort of thing. It's easier to control.
Absolutely. So. But yeah, what else you got for us, man? I'm anxious. I'm like, give it to me all. Give it to me all. Already, I'm like, yep. So before I actually, I'm going to take a step back and say, it's interesting the way that spirit feels, because we talk about the two types of hauntings, residual and intelligent. Residual tends to be an echo, so it is very routine. Right. But then there's those ones that are intelligent, but they kind of sit in the middle. They're still very much about their routine, but can change based off of things happening, which gives them a sense of intelligence, whereas real residual will happen whether the house falls or not. Like it'll still happen. So
like in the case of if the house was remodeled, they're still going to go do their routine. So when maybe in their lifetime there was a door or stairs here, and then it was changed, and they still go through the wall.
Yeah, you'll see that. Yeah, in a lot of stories, you'll see them walk through a wall where a door used to be. Absolutely.
Well, I've heard even where maybe it was a light that was turned on. Yeah. The light moved or replaced with something else. Well, whatever is there now gets turned on and off. So it's more of a activity for a location within whatever the residence is. So.
Okay.
But anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just was thinking about that and forgot.
It's okay. I guess kind of moving forward from there, my elementary school, I'm sure, I don't know how true, I don't think it's that true, but when I was there was a myth of it was built on an ancient Indian burial ground.
Yeah, I think that, well, here's the thing. It probably was. Theirs was a lot more than people realize. Now, also, let me ask you this. Are you from Louisville, or?
No, I am originally from Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, all right. Another Arizona person.
And just around where I live in Tucson, there's like 4 different Native American tribes.
Oh yeah, one, and you're just miles away from Tombstone as well.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because I think I told you this. I just went out there a couple months ago.
Really?
So, yeah, we went out. My brother lives in Phoenix, so we went down to Tucson and Tombstone.
Okay. Well, when people build, if they discover human remains, they're supposed to call places and report it and everything.
Right.
But if you have a contractor who's kind of shady,
right,
they may uncover and not tell anybody. Right. So then you end up with structures being built on graveyards without really anybody knowing about it.
Yep.
I was stationed in Fort Drum, New York for some time, and I stayed in this little trailer there in Calcium, New York. And it was on the news and all that. It was a big thing because they were doing some construction, replacing water lines or something. They're doing work in the ground, and there was a geologist or archaeologist, I can't remember which, probably the archaeologist. But he knew that the town of Calcium was kind of over an old, I think they're the Blackfoot, maybe. I'm sorry if I'm wrong.
No,
that sounds right for New York.
Yeah, I was actually funny because we just on my horror movie podcast we just did The Burning, and it's set in New York at Camp Blackfoot.
Okay.
So
I think I if I'm wrong, I apologize, but so anyways, he started following this construction crew because he knew that it was built over what used to what he believed to be a Native American Indian settlement, or so he was following them and hoping they'll find some kind of artifacts or something. So I'm coming home one day, And the road wasn't blocked off, but there's cops and this and, a bunch of, people in suits. And I'm kind of like, what's going on? Literally right at the end of my driveway to that trailer park in the other road, when they were digging, they found the remains of a Native American, like curled up almost around the existing pipe.
Wow.
And and they had to contact the tribe and have their guidance of what was going to be done, and it just was what they believe was let it lie where it is and go around.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Have we not seen Poltergeist? Shoot, and we've heard the story of mine. Where my old neighborhood where I grew up was Toledo City Cemetery, and then when the city expanded, they moved it. Well, how much did they really move?
Well, and how much is tied to the body versus tied to a location, right?
Right.
So,
Very interesting. So, but you were saying that your elementary school was more than likely, but if that was out west, probably had a better chance of it.
Well, especially because there's just a lot of foot, there's just a lot of traffic there. I mean, I don't know if you call them nomads, but they kind of would move around from here to there, And the desert, you kind of do that too. You're always searching, you're always foraging, you're moving around, you have a large footprint. But yeah, so the reason I bring that up though is the kids would always say that in use of why it was haunted.
Right.
The school was haunted. And, I have a friend I still have on Facebook, anybody could reach out. Well, not anybody, but you know what I mean?
What's his name?
I've talked to him, even recently about it, and, he was telling, we're like, man, it was real crazy. So the story I have about that is when you were until you were in 3rd or 4th grade, you had to use a different set of bathrooms normally, because that's where your classes were.
Right.
And then the 4th and 5th graders had their own set of bathrooms, but when you had your lunch and recess, you had to use theirs. And I remember I went in during lunch or recess one day, and so there's a door, you go in the door, and then there's another door. So when I went in the first door, the second door was kind of flapping open and shut, and I was like, that's kind of weird. And as it was doing that, you could kind of see the lights kind of flickering inside, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta really go to the bathroom. So I go in, I open the second door, I go in there, and it's just, I can't explain it, but it was just the oddest thing that I've probably ever really seen as far as that goes. Every single stall in the maybe the two, but every stall door is flapping open and shut, slamming. The water's turning on and off. The lights are turning on and off. The toilets are flushing. Toilet paper is literally flying around the center of the room like a cyclone almost. Jeez. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'll wait.
You just found the door that's not flapping, right? I mean,
I went to the other one.
It was just Slimer in there getting done what he's got to get done.
I mean, I'd like to think that someone was, pulling a prank. I mean, okay, fine, that explains the doors, but how are you turning the?
Are you twirling the toilet paper?
Yeah, exactly.
Some kids in there with a leaf blower,
I think when you kind of start getting into this stuff, I think a lot of people, it's just kind of a natural reaction to try to disprove it.
Yeah, debunk it or disprove it. Yeah.
Right. Just to try to make you feel a little better.
Right.
Yeah.
Comfort yourself.
We do that as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we try to debunk to make sure that we're not falsifying things, but I mean, something like that, I mean, come on.
Right.
I'm talking about a light came on and we're like, oh my God, but it was really just Dan flipping the switch, but we didn't want to find out that it was Dan.
Right.
So yeah, stuff like that though, I mean, that's nuts. I mean, that puts you closer to my childhood. I had a lot of crazy stuff like that happen. Our school was purported to be haunted. It definitely wasn't over an Indian burial ground, but we had these two, I thought they were underground tunnels, It's where, like, the tables would get stacked on and these rollers, and they would open these huge doors and slide them in. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, somebody told me that that's where the Underground Railroad was before I knew what the Underground Railroad was, and so I was told that that's where they sent bad kids and, like, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So I thought that these tunnels just went deep, like, straight into hell. And I went to Catholic school, and so I thought this was, like, a pass to hell, you know, and I couldn't even look inside there. And when I had to, like, help to do the lunchroom stuff, because you know I always have students do it, I never volunteered for tables. And nothing I mean, I never saw anything, but it was all just the fear of it.
We had culverts, is what they are, you know. They would run under the school and other buildings and stuff, and I heard there was one by my high school that if you went down and looked out, like where, you know, before it was real far in, like right there going kind of in, people would spray paint it like this is the entrance to hell. And I don't know, you know, I just seen that, but I just think it's funny, you know, you bring it up. Like, I heard stories of people like actually taking flashlights and walking through there, and it's like, what are you trying to find, the Ninja Turtles? I mean,
that'd be the best case scenario.
What's that movie where they go into the tunnels underneath Paris or whatever, and they find
As Above, So Below?
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time. God, it's crazy good. It's scary. It's so scary. It's also It, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. They're also in the tunnels. Down there with Derpa. Derpa, that's what they are to me. But yeah, I completely get that. So you got any stories when you're like high school, maybe?
I do. I have some, you know, going forward. My mom's, after my parents separated.
Oh, yeah, you said something about your mom's house.
Yeah. After my parents separated, we spent a little bit of time in Benson, Arizona, which is a really, well, back then it was a lot smaller than it is now, but it's still a pretty small town. Most of the reason it's on the map is because people go through there to get to Tombstone.
Yeah.
I think they got their Walmart back in like 2000 something.
I'm pretty sure I stopped there to get a drink.
So we stayed there for a few months, and then moved back down. And I think 6th grade, we lived in an apartment, but it was like 7th and 8th. Hold on. Sorry. So, after my parents separated, we stayed in Benson, Arizona for a little bit, and then moved back to Tucson, where we were living with my aunt and uncle in an apartment for a year. And then after that, my mom had moved out on her own and got her own house with her boyfriend she had at the time. And it was in that house I had my first encounter of what people call seeing the light.
Ooh, interesting.
I was probably about 12, 13-ish, I guess. Thinking, you know, because I was in either 7th or 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I was in. So the way the story goes is I was asleep, and I had one of the classic where you kind of wake up from a dream, but you're still dreaming kind of scenes. It felt like. And when I woke up, I was staring at so my bed, the head of my bed was in the opposite corner, catty corner to the door, right? I was laying on my back, and I woke up, and I was looking at the corner above the door opposite of me, and there's just this white, in the you know, the dream, it was kind of like a disc, a circle, but it was this white light, and can't describe the color. It's just pristine. It's not, you know, like there's 20 million different shades of white,
right? But
this is just, I don't know, it's its own
pure,
right?
Yeah, the pure healing version.
So, it's weird. I felt myself like I was lifting up off my bed and while laying down, feet first, kind of going towards this light. And I remember getting close to it, and it's not like I was scared, but I remember getting kind of close, and the only thing I could think of was no. And I woke up, and I was staring at the same corner in the room, and just to me, what made it like such a real experience was when I had woke up the first time, the lighting, everything about the way it looked when I first seen this, when I actually woke up, it was exactly the same. It's not like I was dreaming that it was 6 o'clock in the morning and the sun's just coming out, and then I woke up at midnight. Like it was like the same time, like everything looked the same. It was.
So now, you said you felt yourself kind of float up and float. Do you think you were astral projecting, or do you think it was your body? Like, because that's so when you woke up, you were in your original position, right?
Right.
So more than likely, you were astral projecting,
Probably,
which is the soul essentially.
Right.
So weird to think that happened without some sort of death.
Right.
That whole idea of the white light is rare.
I went to Alien.
Oh, yeah? God, well,
Abduction.
go that way. I mean, there are many people that just simply believe that that's what the white light is.
I mean, it's like an abduction type experience. You're being drawn into whatever.
Like a portal.
Right.
Yeah. I just know that it was white and light, and that's all I know.
And you felt good about it.
Yeah, it's not like like I said, I didn't have I wasn't scared. If that even really has anything to do with anything, I just never. I mean, I've heard. I agree with you. I've heard stories of abduction and stuff like that. People seeing the light, and I don't know. Like, if it was coming out of the window.
What's interesting is that you described it as a disc.
Right.
Which really opens up that idea of a portal.
Yeah.
Like more so than just simply, I don't mean to say this rudely, but usually a lot of time those white light portals tend to be yonic, like very almost shaped like a vagina. Like it's like it's almost like that. But this to be circular, completely circular, almost disc-like, it seems more like a portal as opposed to a doorway.
Right.
Well, and I mean, we don't really know what you saw, but this is just our interpretation.
Yeah, I'm talking off the top of my head.
I mean, don't change your story. Like I was almost abducted once.
No, I don't plan on that, but I'm glad to hear the interpretations, because I've told this story before to some people who I guess weren't as knowledgeable or not knowledgeable in that, and they were just kind of like, oh wow, that's crazy,
Neat.
But to hear,
but that's a cool story, bro.
But to hear, your opinion or how you interpret it, it's enlightening.
Yeah.
It's
no pun intended.
Right. right. Kind of gives me, I guess, a little bit something to research on too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
So I guess sticking with the whole little chronological kind of deal, kind of how I remember them a lot too. So I'd say the next bigger one is, you flash forward a few years to now I have my driver's permit, learning to drive. My mom had shout out to my mom and dad here. They both are good drivers. My dad made it home many a nights because he claimed the car knew his way home.
My dad also my dad also has a robotic car.
and talking about that though, like when I had my first job, I rode in and home with him from work, and there was a lot of times I'd look over and I swear his eyes were closed. He's driving down the road, and I'm like, how are you doing this? Stop at a red light would turn green, he'd start going.
Memory.
I guess, but I mean, I don't know.
I've been so dead tired before going home, and I get home and I'm like, how did I get here?
Well, and it's like so many times if I'm going at like somewhere where the first parts of the direction are like going to work, I'll just go to work.
Yeah. Autopilot.
Yep.
But, there's a few times I was like, hey, pull over, let me drive. Let me drive home, all right? So, he's a good driver. My mom, I'd say she's a good driver. The car I learned to drive in is the one I'm going to talk about in this story, but it's also the reason I'm going to say she's a good driver. She used to take me to school sometimes. We get it was a Ford Bronco 2, little SUV deal, stick shift. She'd get in with her cup of coffee and cigarette. And we'd start going down the road, and she was holding the cup of coffee in her left hand, cigarette in the right, using that to shift. Her left foot, on the clutch, right controlling that, and then her knee to steer the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Well, you drove a straight line all the way to school, right?
No. No, I mean, when it came to the turn, she used the right hand to turn, but, I mean, just even going straight down the road, just over here shifting and drinking coffee. Just, anyway, so.
Gotta love knee driving. I do it.
So I learned to drive in that car. I'll let her get up and go. We're coming back from one of her friend's house that lived a little outside Tucson. It's called 3 Points. Not very far, but the road you take, it's a lot of roads where I'm from in the west are straight, kind of gridlock. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got turns and all that, but there's a lot of just straight, like the Eagles song on the Dark Desert Highway.
Yep.
So it was at night. I'm driving home, and there's a car in front of us. The speed limit is probably 50, 55, if I remember correctly. We're doing like 45. I'm like, hey, can I go around him? Oh, yeah, sure, okay. So I get over in the lane to pass, and I start getting alongside of him. And as I start getting alongside of him, getting ready to pull, he starts speeding up. And I can't tell you a good exact distance, but in the distance, a car turned out, right under the road into their lane, which I'm in trying to pass this guy.
Right.
I see this. I see the headlights, so I let up off the gas to slow down. I'm probably doing about 65, 70 at this point.
Right.
I pull up, let my foot off the gas to slow down, and I get back over. Well, my mom didn't think that I was doing it fast enough. And not to interrupt the story, but she told me at a later time her grandparents had died in a car crash, and she didn't want to go that same route. So what she did was she reaches over with her left foot and stomps her foot on my foot onto the brake, like stomped it. And at the same time grabbed the steering wheel and cut it to the right. I'm driving, my mom's in the passenger seat, my sister, my younger sister, 4 years younger than me, is in the back behind me. And as soon as I feel the nose of the car start to go into the turn, like my hands clenched as a reaction to, like, why are you turning my, but I remember as my hands clenched on the steering wheel, my vision went white, the same white that I told in the previous story. And in this moment that was very minuscule in the length of time, felt 10 times longer than probably what it really was.
Right.
But while there, it was like somebody was patting me on the back saying, hey, everything's going to be all right. And when I came to, I don't know, I can't explain this. All I know is my hands kind of just did whatever. And even though we're spinning in the road, and when I say spinning, we're actually like still on the tires spinning, even though I'm pretty sure we should have been rolling end over end.
Sure.
And we're spinning, and finally, whatever, it stops. And we're perpendicular to the road. And I put it in neutral, parking brake on. I get out like, hey, you're driving the rest of the way home. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
You wanted it.
Yeah.
Here you go.
I'm done. And so this is something, over the years I've heard when there's traumatic events, people tend to forget things and, this and that. It's what I find odd is I remember every detail just about of that event so clearly. To forget this just doesn't explain anything to me. When I got out of the car, there was no taillights going down the road. There was no headlights facing me. The other way, there was no taillights. Where did the two cars go?
Well, yeah, and out there, it's so flat, you'd be able to see for a while.
Right, exactly. And that's my point. But there were no cars. Where did the two cars go?
Curious what your mom's recollection of the event is. Does she remember it the same? Other than the white light, obviously, but does she remember it the same?
To be honest with you, I never really asked that. I mean, it would be a good thing to. It would be a good start.
Well, might help to maybe corroborate what you're thinking. So, and maybe she can make up for that window where you went white. Where.
Well, when
Yeah, I mean, who knows? She might have blacked out. I mean,
I did talk to her a little bit about it before, fairly recently, a few months ago. And she was telling me, that's when she told me about her grandparents dying in a car accident, not wanting that and everything. And I can't remember if I brought that up. I will be honest with that. I don't remember if I brought that up or asked, well, what did you see?
Sure.
But it's just,
Well, and the other thing is you don't know how much time passed. So there may have been more time passing than you realized, which may have been why you didn't see the taillights. A lot of times, let's say it's a white light. Let's say, like the story of Betty and Barney Hill. Their big thing is they saw these lights, and then all of a sudden, they were on the road. It was 4 hours later, right? They're driving. They don't remember getting into the car. And so who knows, something might have grabbed you. You know what I mean? Like, if we can go that crazy route and say, what if, that same possible entity from the white light grabbed you again and moved you and brought you to a later point in time?
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's like the rabbit hole. You can go as far as you want with it. The way I just kind of look at it is apparently I got 2 guardian angels looking after over me, and I don't know. I mean, that's why one of my mottos is don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly.
I mean, similar story with me with our friend Nathan, flying off. We had just seen, what was the name of that movie? Not Need for Speed, Speed. Oh, it's just called Speed. With Keanu Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
We had just went and saw that movie, and we're driving down Gene Snyder, and we're over off of New Cut, I think, or National Turnpike. I don't remember which. But it's like right as it's coming up where the bridge is, and the exit had just went off, he looks at me and goes, "Stay on or get off. Stay on or get off." And I joked, and I said, "Get off." Well, I should have known better because he's crazy.
Oh, wow.
And he just whips the truck. We've got the Chevy S10. He just whips the truck over. We just missed the
guardrail.
The guardrail.
Yeah.
And so we're flying in the air. And I remember us both on the floor of his car going, "Whoa!" We never felt a bounce. We were going perpendicular to it, so we should have been like going away from the road. But when we both sat up, we were facing the direction of the exit. We were on the road, on the exit, facing the correct way, which should not have happened. We're facing north. We were heading east. Like, I don't know how it happened. We never felt anything bounce, bump, nothing. Like, nothing at all. So it's like, I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea. None.
I mean, I've heard that story before, but I never really put it together that, that you guys were basically put back on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. So, next story I have is, I guess, Iraq. Story that
in the military. This is
the military days.
So, what branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Army, United States Army.
Nice. So this is the one that grabbed me.
This is the story that got me on the show.
Yes. Though, if you'd have told me some of those other ones, it would have worked too.
Well, that's why I said, hey, maybe we need to just kind of talk this out and not just have a listener story.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I've really enjoyed this so far.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me, honestly.
Yep.
So, Iraq. Cradle of civilization. I was literally about a kilometer, give or take, from the Tigris River.
That's what I was going to ask, is where I just finished a documentary called Buried Bible Secrets, and so they were really getting into that area,
right?
Especially Babylon and things like that.
If there's one thing I regret, which I didn't have no control over, is I regret not being able to go see Babylon. I've heard people being in Iraq being able to go see these famous historical places.
Oh, I would love it.
Oh yeah, me too. I really would, but I mean, I don't think I would never just go there as a tourist.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea.
Not at this point in time.
There's a lot of the Middle East that I'm like, man.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really sad to hear that so much of that stuff is being destroyed.
Oh yeah, by the ISIS.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
But it's not the first time it's happened in history.
No, it's not.
So, I was on a air base outside of Balad, It was known as Anaconda or Mortaritaville. The Naval Ordnance Base here in Louisville actually, no, it's not. Well, I don't know. I know Raytheon now does. They make what's the Phalanx, and they put a few of those around our base. And what they do is they're designed for naval ships to shoot down incoming, like, I guess, other naval ships' ordnance. But it also works for this other application called mortars.
Yeah. And
there's 3 or 4 or something around the base, and they have all these super fancy sensors and all that. And what happens is they detect an incoming mortar, and like somehow the computer triangulates on it, and it's a big Gatling gun. Shoots like 50 bullets in like 5 seconds or something stupid. It's just super fast. It peppers the sky, the area.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting sight to see. We'd be outside smoking, and you'd hear one wind up, and you start looking around like, where is it? And you'd see the tracer rounds go in the air, and then it obviously it hit something, because then it would look like a firecracker dud. Like
just a little smoke,
right? Little sparks, just like. And they put them there because they called it Mortaritaville, because they got mortared all the time, and that actually helped prevent a lot of that. But so. Well, when I first got there, it was probably within the first month of being there. The base was one of Saddam Hussein's air bases that we took over during the push after 9/11. What is that? 18 years ago?
Yeah, 18 years ago today we're recording, actually.
Yeah. Shout out to all those people that worked that, too. It's a tragic event. So, we stayed in actual hard buildings, and over the course of our time there, we were told that we'd be the last people that stay in the actual hard buildings like that, and they wanted soldiers to stay in what they call chews. They're like little, like, train cars that they furnish into rooms, like the mobile offices you see on construction sites. Okay. But we actually stayed in one of the actual buildings that was there, and never really had nothing there, but there was the smaller building off to the side that I had to go in. They use it to store oil. And I had to go in there during the day to get something out, like a quarter oil. And when I went in, I just had this really bad feeling. Actually, I'm going to finish this one, but I do have another story I just skipped. But, so... And I pushed the door as far open as I could, and then it just like slowly creeped to like an inch or two open, like barely light in there. I'm using my cigarette lighter as light.
So let me get this straight. You're using a cigarette lighter where they store oil to see.
Well, yeah, but I mean it's in quartz oil and stuff. But yeah, that's all I had. I didn't have a flashlight, so
it's like the Wile E. Coyote in the dynamite tunnel.
So I'm sitting there using my lighter, and I'm holding my breath to keep it from me blowing it out. I'm trying to read these numbers to find out what I'm looking for, and all of a sudden the flame just kind of goes like off at this weird angle. I'm just like, and at the same time I just got this shiver down my spine. I was like, I got to get out of here. And luckily it was just at the same moment I seen what I needed. I grabbed it and I was out. So a few months go by, we're doing a transmission job on a Humvee, and inside our actual maintenance bays, we'd have 55-gallon drums of oil, and it came time to fill the transmission up. Takes about 13 quarts, and my sergeant was like, hey, go get some transmission oil for us. And it dawns on me that we just used the last of that drum earlier that day, and that meant I had to go back in that building. And I'm just sitting here like, oh no. And so
it's that strong of a memory.
Yes.
Wow.
And I spoke with him. Me and him would talk a lot because he was stationed in Fort Huachuca, which is outside of Sierra Vista, to Arizona. not too far from Tombstone, and he went and visited there, and we would talk a lot about Tombstone and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So we were kind of on the same page when it comes to this like paranormal kind of stuff. And I'm a grown man. I just looked at him. I'm like, "Will you go with me?"
Grown man in the military.
Yeah.
Will you be my thunder buddy?
And he kind of looks at me, cocked his head, and he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go get I'll go get a flashlight and the key to the building."
Mm-hmm.
And as we're walking over there, I remember him telling me that he kind of thought that they used that building as a torture chamber, like when they first took over the base. I mean, we don't do, I mean, I'm not in anymore, but just to get that clear, we don't torture people when we don't interrogate them, we question them.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so
I know that was a big thing for Saddam, though, is he tortured a lot.
Well, yes, he did too. So I mean, it could have been on either side, both. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
regardless. That's some energy. That's
someplace. Yeah, and so it was the same night. So I give that as the backstory so you kind of understand the presence of this building. We finished this job. We're done. We're kind of winding down, but because we worked nights during we worked at night when it was cool, so we didn't have to work during the day when it's like 130 there.
Right.
We're kind of winding down. Me and my buddy, we're outside smoking, and there was like a hallway, but it was glass on both sides. But anyways, we right outside of that is where we're smoking, and wherever. So about 50 feet from there is this wooden building that was like our MWR. You have a pool table or whatever, TV stuff in it. And in between that building and the actual hard building was a path, a little 4-something foot wide, whatever path. You could, it's not like, you could walk down it, right? So at the end of it, it's about 100 feet away from where we're standing. We're sitting there smoking, about 2-3 feet apart from each other, and it was in sync. Like, it was weird, like, just in sync without any kind of communication. We both looked to the right, and it, like kind of a split-second deal. We both look to the right, look at each other, look back to the right, look back at each other, and are like, yeah. We both seen it. At the end, towards the end of the building, was this figure that, by judging the distance, was probably about 6-7 feet tall. Kind of, built looking tight, wasn't like slender. Black figure. And when I say black, I mean black, like
Vanta black.
Well, yeah, like there was no color at all to it. It was a legit black. And to paint this picture, this wasn't a dark, moonless night, and even then there's lights around up, you could see, and there's two options really you could be in: a gray shirt and black shorts. I mean, we did have some black stuff, but even then you would still see it. Yeah. You would see the figure, like 3-dimensional figures, the rolling of clothing and all that. Like this was just a black silhouette, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
No color. No, it didn't have the digital. Didn't have it. No. And I looked at my buddy. I said, I gotta go. So I threw my cigarette down. I run in the hall. I go down the hall because we had some guys that would stay down in that wing of the building. I went and knocked on all their doors. Like, hey, did you just come in? Did someone just come in? What's going on? Like, I just seen something out here. I'm trying to figure it out. Oh no, I've been here. And I don't know. To this day, I really feel that if it wasn't a demon, it was what they call a Djinn, the Djinn.
Yep.
And that I think maybe that's a little more fitting given the area I was in.
Right. So we did a little research on Djinn, kind of prepping for this, and Djinn are very, very popular in Muslim literature and Middle Eastern literature, but they believe in some regards that the Djinn are the three creatures made from God. You've got angels, humans, and Djinn.
Okay.
Angels are good. Human are able to choose good or bad. But the Djinn are also able to choose good or bad. They are able to they can always see us, but we can't always see them. And a lot of times they do choose more. And in fact, a lot of people believe that the Djinn is the basis of demons. That because they were able to choose bad, that those that went bad are the demons that we are familiar. But from what I read, they a lot of times are very tall. They're very,
It's the research that you also said that basically the Djinn all live in a like a different dimension. And so Djinn is an Arabic word that basically means the unseen.
Yeah, or the hidden.
Or the hidden.
Okay. Yeah.
And so if they can choose to make themselves visible, but so they're like right now, there's Djinn walking around in another dimension.
Right.
And then they just choose whether or not they want to make themselves known.
And it even says they eat, they marry, they have pets. They have
social caste and everything, so they have government and everything. And
but those that go bad are able to do a lot more with their evil because they have powers that we don't have.
Yeah, and they can I found that they can impersonate other humans. They can I guess transform into other animals and be all that. So it's the Djinn are some pretty cool thing.
Yeah, pretty cool and scary stuff. But it's interesting to do that deep dive. It's interesting because the good ones are benevolent, which a lot of where the genie stories come from.
I had a bad feeling after that, and I really had this. It felt like a calling almost, if you will. Like something wanted me to go to that building. And I told my buddy after I seen, when we went back into our area where our room was, and you would have to go past his before you could get out of the door to even go. And I told him, I said, look, even if I'm going to the bathroom, you need to stop me. I don't like this feeling.
I can't imagine knowing that feeling and then seeing that Djinn or seeing that demon and having that feeling realized. It's got to be insane. It's got to take over your whole body. I can understand where shock would come from.
And
the fact that both of you saw it, that's what's cool.
Yeah, and exactly. The fact, because we did the classic double take, and when we looked back at each other, we were both speechless. I was literally, and he was just kind of nodded his head, I seen it, and it was I gotta,
makes you wonder why it made its presence known, or was that even meant for you guys?
Yeah, maybe you were just kind of bystanders.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I got something that follows me around, being real.
Whew. Well, hate to stop you, but we got to get rolling.
I hear you.
So for those of you that are podcast listeners, we've got an extra story, so stick around after the end to hear a bonus story from Stephen. And those of you listening on the radio, thanks for tuning in. And man, Stephen, thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
And I highly recommend all of the radio listeners to grab that bonus episode when it comes out on Wednesday, because the bonus story at the end, because that's a good one as well.
Yep.
So check that out. But yeah, thank you, Stephen, so much. We would love to have you back, because I'm sure we've only just touched the surface of some of your stories.
Yeah, that's only one country. I've been to 2 others.
There you go. But yes, thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in to 100.9 FM WCHQ. Remember that we are here every Sunday at 9 p.m. here on the air, but you can also tune in to www.wchqfm.com if you're outside of the radio range and want to stream it, or go ahead and download the WCHQ app, where you can take that with you wherever you want and listen to WCHQ all local all the time whenever you want to. So, but yeah, I'm super pumped, Josh, man.
Yeah. Second one in.
You got a doozy.
Yeah,
you got a doozy on that one, man. I'm sure we're all gonna sleep well tonight. But once again, I'm gonna say it again, Stephen. Man, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
and being brave to share it, because a lot of people aren't. And speaking of stories, we didn't have time to do a listener story today because it was all listener stories. But we will always share your stories on here. Just email those to fearscapepodcast@gmail.com. Send a story. It can be a small story, or send me multiple stories. Or heck, if you're in the Louisville area, come on, we'll have you on. I would love to get spooky with you. So, but yeah, we're gonna get out of here. But as usual, I just want to say thank you again to everyone who listens, to our blanket huggers out there. And this has been Stefan, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
Hey, this is Josh. The truth is out there.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, hold those blankets extra tight. We'll see you next time.
I mentioned earlier I skipped a story, right? And it's actually kind of an important one, too. So, back in high school, this is when I'm actually now probably like 17, 18. It was when I was getting ready about, 16, because I was still going to a certain school. So, yeah. It was when I was 16. I came home one day, and I found a Ouija board. And I just went and threw it in the dumpster. I knew they were bad news. I didn't know.
I am one of those that disagree with that, but
I don't know. That's just what I was told.
Yes, and that is and depending on how it's used,
right.
it can be used for bad.
So, all I knew is I seen that. I went and threw it in the trash. And I can't recall if it started before this or after this event, and I'll be honest, it's just that long ago. But I know that when I lived in that house, I spent more time there than my mom and my sister did. My mom would get up and usually go to work about the same time we were going to school, and when she got off of work, 5, 6, wherever that was, she'd usually stop, see her boyfriend for a little bit, and then come home and get home about 8 or 9. And when my sister got home from school, she'd usually come in, find something to eat, and then she'd go to her friend's house down the way. So I spent a lot more time there by myself, and, I would set something down on the table in the living room, and I wouldn't need it for, a couple days or something. And then when I needed it, it was gone. And I'd go to my mom, my sister, like, hey, you seen this? Where is it? Last place I seen it was where I left it. Mm-hmm. Like, well, it ain't there. I didn't take it. Where is it? I don't know. All right, well, I don't know. I mean, I'd tear my room or whatever apart looking for it, not find it. And 2 weeks ago by, bam, right there where I left it on the coffee table. Like,
yep.
Are you kidding me?
Yep.
And that happened a few times, not just, We had cats. We had a couple cats. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes me wonder a little bit. We can save that for another show. Kind of how the Egyptians view cats.
Oh, yeah.
But, so, and this happened for a while too, right? So I'd sit on the couch, and where I would sit, I could see down the hallway. And my sister's room was at the very end of the hallway. And I would see, periodically, I'd see it look like a shadow go from like one side of the room to the other, like across the door. And for a long time, I just kind of thought it was a play of shadows and light, like cars passing by.
Yeah.
So one day in the summer, it's hot, got the front door open, and even with the door closed, like if a car went by, usually you could hear them, because like we lived on a corner, so they have to stop, so you hear the brakes slowing. City buses, you'd hear them coming from a mile away.
Right.
I see this shadow kind of go left and right a couple times, and finally I'm sitting there thinking like, I don't recall hearing a car go by.
Right.
So I'm watching TV, I see it go again a couple times. I get up, I go outside, I stand on the corner, and I can see pretty much, the end of each road, or each way, all 4 ways, and I didn't see any cars. I'm like, okay, so maybe it's not that. And I go back in and hear it, it starts going again a couple times, and a couple more times. And I just remember I looked down the hallway and I thought to myself, like, what do you want? And as soon as I thought that, on the other side of the house, a broom falls that I was the last one to touch. So I jump up and I look, behind me is one cat. I'm like, well, where's the other cat? Because their litter boxes are back there. I started getting into the dining room, and it was weird. As I look over, and I see the other cat sitting in the chair at the room table where she normally sits if she's not on the couch. I'm like, oh crap, it's not a cat. Why did that broom fall? This cold rush just like slams me like right through, and I'm paralyzed. Like I can't move.
Right.
And just in that moment, it felt like something was trying to take me over. And I don't know. I cannot describe it. But to the best of my ability, I fought. You know, like, no, like, you're not just going to take me over. Like,
oh, hell.
Yeah, I don't, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm over here like, no, like trying to, you know, and finally, you know, I can move and all that. And it was the weirdest thing. Really, it was. I started doing some kind of weird, like, dance and chant. Like some Native American words, you know.
Synchronicities are weird.
Like, yeah, like I don't, and really, I to this day, I don't, for the purpose of this show, I'm going to tell you the whole story. A lot of times I'll leave that out, not because I...
Well, it's interesting, we just had a very similar story last week.
Really?
Like, listen to Josh's episode. He talks about his great-great-uncle doing that.
Really? Mm-hmm. A lot of times I leave that out just because I don't want people I work with, or, you know, be like, you're just you know, you're...
No, that's how they deal with it.
And, you know, I just remember, like, doing this, and it's like after this whole little, like, chanting kind of whatever, right? It was like I felt my energy building up during it. Like, it felt some kind of energy building up in me, and then it got to, like it peaked, and then, like, it went out. And after that, it was kind of like, oh, you know, like nothing was there, nothing happened. And interestingly, after that happened, after that event took place, when I would, you know, 'cause I was still there for a little bit before I joined the military, there'd be times that I would come in the house, and as soon as I'd open the front door, I would get this feeling like something was there, but like it ran away almost. And I don't have any idea what this has to do with any of it. If that was some kind of you know, innate kind of, I don't know, call, you know, it just inside our minds, like kind of like, hey, no, I'm expelling you or something, but it's still there. But because I overpowered it, it's kind of like, oh, don't mess with this guy, right? Because, you know, even a couple years later, you know, after I was in the Army, I'd come home and visit every now and then, and I wasn't very, you know, anyways, I'd go into that house when my mom still lived there, and it was even a period of 2 years, I'd still walk in the house and get that same feeling where it was like something was like there, and I was like, oh no, and then you know. And I've talked to my sister, and she told me that, because we called it the Shadow Man. And my sister told me a story that, you know, supposedly it took her over and was taking her to the back of the house, and that's kind of all she told me. So,
man. Whew. Well, hate to stop you, but we got to get rolling.
I hear you.